is it the LNG terminal? What is your immediate growth intention there? And then in terms of the legacy Petro businesses that aren't incorporated, can we get some visibility of what that means? What is the turnaround strategy there? And when will there be an integration decision? Thank you.
My name is Tanya Mayabo. I'm from the Business Day. The CEO, could you just bring us into plans on how to grow South Africa's refining capacity, considering the drastic decline, as you mentioned, since 2010? And then for the minister, in your keynote address, you mentioned how every time there's an oil and gas exploration in South Africa, NGOs take the government to court, and that slows down the process.
That slows down the process. Can you just give me perhaps a value of how to arrest this trend? Is there a plan to arrest this trend? And also, just how much is the government looking to attract an FDI in the oil and gas exploration sector, considering now that the SANPC is operational?
Okay, we're just going to first take those three questions, but colleagues, I just want to make something clear. Minister is not going to have one-on-one interviews after this. So please make sure that you take this opportunity and just think through your question. Minister,
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and Lisa, I'll start with your questions. I think one of the things that we have done is this has been a long journey. As we said earlier on in the day, we started by putting the board in place to make sure that, we've got the governing body. We have put the executive in place. And in our group, there are companies which have been running well, and we had to copy some of the benchmarks, what they've been doing. So at this stage, we have gone first through all the approval processes to make sure that we've got Section 54 approval, we've got Section 51 approval, put the board in place, put the executive in place. And the next step that we're going to do in terms of business growth, there is a big opportunity in the market in terms of the imports. The reason why we have not started today is just to make sure that all the governance processes are in place and all the approval processes are in place before we get there. We can't afford to falter as we go forward in terms of dealing with this. Petro SA, turnaround. We have left the executive team and the leadership team at Petro SA legacy to make sure that they focus on turning around those entities. And we've realized that part of the challenge that we have is that people tend to be busy with too many things. So the reason why we decided that we're going to leave the legacy entities with the board, with the executive, is to make sure that they focus on those assets, i.e. the refinery. And they're currently going through the process of looking at partnerships to be able to make that work. Don't know if I missed the question. There was a question around LNG, the growth. So there are assets that, or opportunities which the legacy entities have been working on. SFF, that we're looking at building a pipeline in Saldanha to be able to bring LPG into the country. The last 4 years, every winter, we actually run out of LPG in Cape Town. So that's a big opportunity in terms of growth to make sure that we get that asset. Secondly, we are in Montague Gardens, we've got Saldana and Milnerton terminals. We're going to have to upgrade some of those terminals and actually just integrate and make sure that we get more value out of those assets, especially where we've got underutilization of the assets. And SABREF is a very strategic asset in Durban, and we're looking at options of using some of those assets, tankage, to bring the molecules into this country. So those are some of the opportunities that we are looking at. The others are still at an early stage, and we will probably not give the details of what we are planning to do, and we'll share that as we go along with that growth agenda. And then there was a question around building of the refinery. We've got SABREF and Mossel Bay. Our plan is to get those two refineries back on stream, and SABREF will obviously look at bring it back on stream, and not only at the level of 180,000 barrels per day, but look at expansion as well and upgrade. Up to what you need.
Thank you. I think he covered most of the questions, and they responded accordingly. Another key aspect is, as a board, we are having about 12 to 18 months, which we call cooling off period on the employees that have been transferred. So this gives the opportunity to align all the governance structures, assist with the changing of the culture of the seconded employees into the organization, develop policies that will govern the SANPC and adapt most of the processes that have been happening on the entities to suit the requirements of the SANPC. I think the other key aspect is to engage also with the department, specifically on looking at the policies that govern the petroleum sector, so that we, in that interaction, we can identify opportunities that will create growth for the SANPC. There are actually partnerships that we have started negotiating and looking at, which we hope, bar approvals that we are waiting for from the Transnet group, we can embark on key projects that can be an anchor project in the Western and the Eastern Cape on gas supply. So I think we are almost a month away on that, as what the Transnet has promised us to give us approval on the terminal operator agreement. And then we'll follow up with the ministry and align that project with the requirements of the Department of Petroleum Resources. He highlighted the immediate priorities. The SPM, I think it's key in that in the past when you had the refineries running, I think most of the refiners had shareholding in that SPM in the Isipingo area of, I think, 5 kilometers of this beach. So with now one refiner reliant on that SPM, it means the cost of actually operating and running that SPM has a huge effect, especially because they are located even further, about 600 kilometers away from that SPM. So we will engage also with the department and the Department of Forest and Environment to get approval so that we can use it for multi-product transportation rather than one, because there is huge tankage that is available both in the south and the north of the SABREF refinery. So if we can effectively utilize that, I think it will provide an alternative from the congested port there in the Island View area to actually supply and bring products, because from the refinery you have pipelines both to those tankage for crude at the old airport, and then for product back to LNG and into the NMPP pipeline. I think we should also be aware that through SFF, we actually finance without the benefit in the past. We call it the line fill that you feed on the line from Durban to Johannesburg. So we will have to engage with the department to actually convert that to an income stream for the SANPC, because everybody is benefiting except the, I would call it now, SANPC. And yet we finance that, I think, to the tune, depending on the oil price, about 3.5 billion. So there is already a huge investment that has been made there. Then we will in area so that we can then interface the Western Cape and the Mossel Bay and the ESCOM demand by utilizing those tanks. Otherwise now they are sitting, I think, and they are not even utilized, I won't say underutilized. So there is those projects that we have to look at. With the approval from the department, we may have to then see how we convert them to create a better business case than what it is at the present moment. And we understand also that the future demand is not, if we do not bring quick enough the separate refinery into production, then we have a huge oil storage at Saldanha. So we have to relook whether we can only store for South Africa or then maybe do other things that will make those tanks utilized effectively and create benefits for the SANPC. He has covered the Petro SA, so we will assist and work with the teams at Petro SA to actually, I think the quickest that we have looked at and that we can bring in whilst the environmental issues are being addressed on exploration, both offshore and onshore, will be the liquid section. So we will look at that with Petro SA, so that if we can bring that, at least it goes a long way in elevating the impact of Petro SA within the group, and maybe we'll end up speeding up the process of bringing it into the center. Thank you.
Let me start with the last question. NGOs that take us to court all the time, almost all of them are foreign funded. Okay, they are foreign funded. I'm emphasizing that. If you trace their flow of funding, you'll find mainly from the US and UK. Now, what we think should be done, we've tabled that to government to take a decision. One, NGOs must be registered and declare source of funding, as we do as political parties. That is number one. Number two, we think that the example of Namibia will work better for us, where we have a tribunal to deal with commercial cases, where there's a disagreement and deadlock, and accelerate the process. If we can do that, I think we'll be happy with how we deal with NGOs. What will not happen? They must not be banned, they'll be allowed to engage us. But process must be accelerated and be streamlined. That's it. On the rewriting of SOEs, we've not crafted our strategy in those bold terms. Okay, we've not crafted it in those bold terms. But what we are doing, we want to revive entities that are in our jurisdiction. One of the things that we're beginning to establish as a department is that entities that are in our department are run efficiently. We're running 12 entities last year. all of them, 6, had unqualified audits, and they all have clean audits, 6. And that is paying attention to the management of the finances. That included Petro SA, by the way, because Petro SA, we've turned it around in terms of administration. That's why they got unqualified audit last year. Number 2, they're doing well on the side of trading. What we should pay attention to is the refineries. The Gazprom contract is not working for us. We are reconsidering how do we deal with it. I'm not worried about the fact that it is sanctioned and all that. I'm sanctioned by the fact that it is not acting. It's not actionable. So if it doesn't act, it is actually letting us down in terms of our ambitious programs. So our view is that Petros can be turned around once those refineries are working. It has all the opportunities, it has all the depots around it, and it can do well. We must just revive those refineries. The issue of building a refining capacity is quite urgent for us. You must remember that all refineries collapsed. Only 2 refineries work, SNAPREF and Astron. Only NAPREF and Astron. NAPREF is Sasol. Yeah. So those are the 2 refineries that are working. That's why we are keen to invest on SAPREF, revive that capacity, and we must move with the necessary speed at Petro SA so that we improve our capacity of refining products rather than importing finished products. On the question of assets that are profitable more. Okay, let me take a chance there. Let me take a chance there. SFF is doing well. IGAS is doing well. It's running one asset. The Romco pipeline from Mozambique is doing well. Where we have some issues is on the Petro SA refining side. On the trading side, we're doing well. So that is the essence of the assets that are in SANPC. It's a combination of all those. The legacy board is actually given the task to turn around those assets that are not doing well before they are transferred to SANPC, so that we don't load the SANPC with liabilities. That is our approach. I'm sure we've answered all the questions.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, the floor is still yours. I'm going to urge you once again to make use of this opportunity. They are here to help you in your reporting, in your analysis. So I'm going to round 2 now. PNCA.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ulu. Maybe let me start with you, Dademware. When you say that this company will change the lives of South Africans, in what practical way, and as you respond to that, factor in the context of the albatross that is called load shedding that continues to have on the necks of South Africans. But for Minister Mantashe, the company is launched, operational, but there's no law in place that is governing this. The South African National Petroleum Company bill is yet to go to Parliament. Is it unfair to assume that these entities are lawful? And I'm saying this because just 2 days back ago, the chairperson of the parliamentary committee expressed concern at the fact that the bill, despite the fact that it was approved by Cabinet in October last year, is yet to be before Parliament. speak to that, please. Lastly, for you again, Minister Mantashe, just your views on the issue involving your son, Mr. Oyambo, in the context of the fact that he's South African.
Mr. Mantashe.
Mr. Mantashe.
Truly.
In the context of the fact that he's a South African, he cannot be denied opportunities unfairly. But if you consider the outcry by those who are criticizing the deployment or cadre deployment policy of your party, the African National Congress, who are saying it appears to be benefiting those who are connected to the ANC, would you think, or would you say that concerns of ordinary South Africans are misplaced in that regard?
Thank you. SABC. Okay. Another hand, colleagues? Follow up.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria from SABC News. My question is for the minister, but not related to this event. Just would like to get, if you can shed some light on the situation at Sibanye Stillwater, where we understand about 289 mine workers are trapped underground.
Do we still have more? Okay. There's a follow-up question.
So it's just a restatement of my first question. What is the business at the moment? What is its bread and butter? What is its pro forma revenues? Does it make, across these entities that are now part of it, does it make a profit? Which are the main profit centers? I imagine the trading business, Petro, supplying to Eskom's important. I don't know whether that's the biggest. Could you give us some idea of what this entity does at the moment? And where, are those, as an entity, giving out the legacy Petro businesses, whether that's a profitable entity? And then if you could just talk to the strategy at SABC. It sounds like you're looking to use the tankerage, restarting the refinery as such. And you want the single boil mooring systems to allow for multiple products. Could you say what sort of products do you want to import through a multiple boil mooring system? And then if you could also talk to, you mentioned, Chevron, the Eastern Cape project. Is that an LNG project that you're looking at starting the Transnet? And is that the best site, given that it looks like most of the demand is going to be around, if there's going to be a 3 gigawatt gas to power terminal power station in Richards Bay, why build it in Cook, if that's the project that you're talking about? And when you talk about restarting Moss gas, from a liquid side, are you talking about bringing in condensate? Is that what you're talking about? Or have you got another strategy to restart it? Thank you.
Do we still have more? Okay,
No.
we'll take those ones for now. Thank you. Minister.
Because you have spoken about Oyambo, I think I must answer first on his behalf. SANPC will change lives of people in what way? It's an economic and commercial company. So it will change the lives of the people. One, employment. Two, supply of products. And its role in society and in the economy. But Ndademwafu will add to that. There is no law. No. You are committing a mistake. There is the CF Act, and it works under it until that law is passed. So there's no vacuum. CF Act covers the legal prescripts of the company. Then when the National Petroleum Company Act is passed, then it will be taken out of CF and be a standalone company. That's the plan. It's not before Parliament. You see, it is before Parliament. Let me tell you, when a draft bill goes through Cabinet, it gets out of the Cabinet, it goes to state law advisors, then Parliament. That is a long process that is outside of our control. It is not in the control of the cabinet, it's not in the control of the minister. Once we have done that, it goes state law advisors. That is part of looking at the law in preparation for the parliamentary process. So it is in parliament. If they say it's not before them, they are actually denying their linkage with the work of the state law advisor. It has gone through the cabinet, it is out there. We're waiting for that arm of government. We don't interfere with the work of the arm of government. Let me stop there on that one. Then the issue of Buyambo. Buyambo happens to be my son. And I listened to this EFF guy talking about corruption in that regard. And I said to somebody who was interviewing me, I said, I've committed two corruption activities in this regard. One, giving birth to Buyambo. Two, is sending him to school. He has 2 master's degrees. One in economics and one is an MBA from Gibbs. And an independent professional who is out there. It doesn't stay with me. He's not an extension of myself. So that's where he is. He's an independent professional, and I prefer it that way. Again, if that is corruption, that will be corruption. But what is important is that in South Africa, one of the things that must be discussed and reopened is the fact that if you are a political activist like myself, you are not only punished as yourself, you accept being punished, but it seems as if our sins are punished to us and our offspring to the first to the fourth generation. It can't work that way. And a son of a political activist is treated worse than an illegal immigrant in South Africa. 2 weeks ago, there was a big debate on universities employing foreign lecturers and professors, overlooking South Africans. Now, you can't have the same rule applying to children who are born of us, because we are here, we're citizens, those kids are our kids, and they can't change that. They are citizens, they must be competing for opportunities. That's why we send them to school. I'm having 4 of them, for your information. I'm having 4 of them. All of them, not a single one is having less than a postgraduate qualification. Okay? Many of them, 2 masters. One has just finished an MBA, and they are going to school because when they are young, I teach them one basic thing. Mantashe is not a qualification, Mantashe is not a profession. Go to school, acquire qualifications, and be a professional. I teach them, I repeat that to all of them as they grow, and they have understood that. One of the things that I think I'm lucky is that they all responded to that education from myself, which is a family education. Now, the Sibanye-Stillwater, there was an accident in Sibanye-Stillwater of a lift that was trapped in the cage. And what is important about that is that up to this morning, there was no report of any injuries except the damage to the cage. And there is no fatality reported. And we're hoping that Sibanye-Stillwater will work carefully and diligently and rescue those workers. That happens in mines, that you go in the lift, sometimes it goes and stops halfway and you run into all sorts of problems. But technically, they will correct that. There is no reported fatality up to now. We're hoping there will be no fatality because our commitment to zero harm is unquestionable. And I think I must stop there and leave SAPREV and the Eastern Cape LNG, is it the best site? Every site in South Africa is a best site. Okay? Because one of the things that we must break in South Africa is the tripod economic development by the apartheid regime. That every developer must go to Durban and areas, Johannesburg and areas, Cape Town areas. That must change. If we can't change that, we are not transforming society.
Thank you very much, Minister. I will just go through those questions. Maybe let me just deal with the separate strategy. So we are very clear. We are planning to revive that refinery. And I think you remember that we had floods in Devon that affected that refinery. It's currently not operating. It's going to obviously take a bit of time to get it back on stream. So while we are working on getting the refinery back on stream, the assets that we believe we can use. So it's not either or. Using those assets does not necessarily mean that we're not going to bring the refinery back on stream. It's an interim measure. We need to make sure that those assets continue to generate revenue. Secondly, the issue of the SBM. That SBM used to be used for crude only. You will know that Devon is congested, and we actually need to look at options of bringing economical parcels into the country. So we are busy with a study to look at, can we use it for dual purpose, for both crude and finished product. So that's what we are busy studying to look at. The business model, Minister spoke about SFF. SFF is a midstream business. Revenue coming from infrastructure, whether it's storage, throughput, or pipeline. So those assets have come across SANPC. And actually, we don't run them in isolation. We're going to look at integration to make sure that we can squeeze more juice out of those assets, optimize and drive efficiencies. And as IGAS, that IGAS is running pipeline from Mozambique, 865 kilometer pipeline. It is also sustainable, generating income. We've got Ghana asset, which is in Petro SA. And of course, I think the sales and marketing, our plan is very clear that we need to grow our position. We are not one of the biggest players in the market, but that's where we see part of our revenue coming from. So, as I said earlier on, we're not starting from scratch. We've got advantage assets, we've got strategic assets. We need to optimize them. We need to continue operating them. And then while we are dealing with the legacy entities. But that's not where we stop, as you asked earlier on. We're also looking at growth and going forward. On the issue of how is SANPC going to change life for South Africans, and I think Minister spoke about jobs. If you draw parallel, the country just across from us, Angola, Sonangol employs 18,000 people. That's a big number, and if we grow our resources, we develop our resources, which is one thing that SANPC is going to be driving. We've got the carry position as a state-owned entity of 20%, but we also have got skills. We're planning to start looking at developing our resources. And if we develop our resources, they'll create jobs. And earlier on, I spoke about, when you look at companies like Petro, they employ 46,000 people. So that's a real change. Secondly, we believe that we should actually drive, transformation, get this company to open up opportunities for previously disadvantaged South Africans to also participate in this sector. And that should actually create a big impact, and the underlying one is security of supply. As a country, we, both in terms of refining, both in terms of developing our own resources, is absolutely important for SANPC. Because if you import finished product, it impacts directly on your balance of payment. And we're going to have to step up to actually create those opportunities and help South Africans to see the benefits from SANPC. Chair, I don't know if I missed any question.
No, thank you. I think you covered all of them. And even the Kukawanas, the minister responded on that one. But maybe I can put the liquid section is that there are 2 projects that Petro is working in. So we will start engaging with them and see which one we can actually expedite to bring back Petro quicker so that the refinery doesn't sit there not working.
The financial visibility, you don't provide any financial visibility. Is this entity on a pro forma basis? What is its revenues? What is it? Is it profitable? You're not providing anything on that. Just know what jobs have been transferred.
Can we give you that one? Okay. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, right, at the moment. But those assets have been obviously strengthen the balance sheet. But I think when we do the financials at the end, we'll give you that. I don't want to just give you the numbers off the top of my head. But we know that those assets have been sustainable from where they came from. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Colleagues, before I close, do we have any follow-up questions? Are we clear? Just one last question.
Yes.
Can you just clarify what you mean by cooling off period for employees? I don't understand what that means. Impact of, sorry. And Minister, I want to just ask you quickly about the mineral resources bill. Mining lawyers are reading through it, everyone's still processing it, but there is some commentary now that it opens the door for new BEE regulations to follow. Would you agree that that's a fair interpretation? Thank you.
The bill, which has nothing to do with petroleum, is the mining one. We are reviving the MPRJ. Okay, that's what we're doing. There are 2 things that are happening there. You will remember that there is an act that is now law. It's an act now, which established the petroleum sector as an independent sector with all its rules and have its own legislation. Then that's why we're to revive the MPRDA. And the MPRDA, BEE, I don't think we should cancel BEE. Somebody have come to me and told me that BEE is actually chasing away investors. I don't accept that. Let me tell you why. To me, I look into the coal mining sector. Coal mining sector is owned and managed by black people, except Glencore. You can look at any other company there. And there's no shortage of coal. They supply coal to ESCOM. If there is a load shedding, it's not because there's a shortage of coal. It can be any other reason. And they're exporting coal, they're doing good business, they're growing. If you take the biggest black coal mining company, Seriti, it's bigger than Pick and Pay in terms of capitalization. It's much bigger than Pick and Pay. And to me, that talks to the gap between the time when blacks were not allowed to participate in the economy and the difference it has made up to now. Manganese is the same. Last week there was an announcement by Exxaro taking over Tsipi, which is the 7th biggest producer of manganese. And when they asked me what is that, I called it consolidation. Exxaro is going to emerge as another conglomerate in mining. So BEE to me is a necessary intervention, and I'm very passionate about it because I went to the mines relatively young. I had matric. I couldn't put my hand on a blasting certificate because it was reserved for a scheduled person, which meant a white man. So those miners who had standard 1 and standard 2, who were supervising me with my matric, I still think that that history must be corrected, and we call that transformation. So BEE is not a big deal for me. There must be BEE. And I don't even accept in mining something called equity equivalent. I want to see black capitalists emerging from the system. Okay.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, I appreciate your questions. They were very crucial. And should you have any further questions, please contact our media desk. We will remain committed in updating you about the progress and the contributions of the SANPC on our national development. Thank you to the leadership that was here to take your questions. Have a great day.